Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sue Shirek, and I'm proud to be the executive director at Northlands Rescue Mission. Thanks. You know, it is the hardest job I've ever had. It's the best job I've ever had. And it's the most rewarding job I've ever had. And I have a lot of you to thank for making it be just that. For those of you who have volunteered, for those of you who have donated, for those of you who have kept us in your prayers, for those of you who have told other people about the work that we do, thank you. Thank you all. I'd like to thank the board for the work that they do for the mission. I would like to recognize the staff that are here, because I'm the person that stands up here, but they're the people that really do all the work. So if I could have my staff please stand and be recognized. They are some awesome people, and I'm proud to work alongside them every day. Before I forget, I also need to recognize, I have 3 friends who came here today, two of them have been my friends since we were 4 years old. And they came from Minneapolis and Detroit Lakes and Stephen Argyle area to be here today. And so I just want to say thank you. And then, you know, some days it's not easy being me, but it's really not easy being my family. And my daughter Amy will tell you she's gone through years of being, oh, you're Officer Shirek's daughter. And now I get the pleasure and honor of hearing, oh, you're Miss Shirek's mom, and because she's a teacher at Schrader. And I have a husband who it takes somebody who can stand a lot to deal with all of this. And so thank you to my daughter Amy and my husband Noel. They volunteer for a lot of things. They get voluntold to do a lot of things. And I'm just very grateful to have a family that loves and appreciates and stands alongside me. So thank you, guys. I also want to thank God, because we wouldn't be here today without him. This place has been here since 1942. And we are one of the oldest shelters in the country. And we don't do this by big corporate dollars. And we don't do this work by big federal grants. We do this work because people like you send a check in the mail. And people like you keep us in our prayers. And people like you volunteer. And let me tell you what your gifts, whether it be time, talent, or treasures, what those gifts have brought forth. It's harvest time right now, right? So we're reaping the benefits of the seeds that have been planted in our fields. It's sugar beet time, game on. We get to see the benefits every day. So when you give to the mission, here's the blessings that have happened this year. 288 people left the mission housed this year. That is the largest number of people that we have housed since we started keeping track back in 2017 when I started. 288 people who are no longer homeless. They're just plain people. There were 16,941 times this year that someone laid their head on a pillow in our care and had a night of sleep at the mission. Can you imagine how many times we wash pillowcases? 68% of our clients left this year for permanent housing and are no longer homeless. Our average stay was 36 nights. It doesn't take an eternity. It takes some hard work and some dedication on the part of the client, and lives change. But it's not just shelter. Our tagline has become, we're more than just a shelter. You maybe saw the backpack program display out there. 12,000 kids. No, 1,200 kids. Sorry. 1,200 kids every week get a meal to take home on the weekend. 1,200 hungry kids in Grand Forks Public Schools. Every elementary school is served and one middle school served because this backpack program exists. And maybe you saw that display of takeout styrofoam containers. Okay? There's 375 of them out there. That's 3 sleeves of the kind that you buy at Sam's Club. And I have 5 more in my car to take to the mission when we leave here. That's not even enough to take care of 4 days. 375 meals is about the amount of meals that we serve every day at the mission. And it's not just to the people who are staying there, it's people in our community who are hungry. People who just need a little bit of help or maybe a lot of help, and a meal is a great place to start. So we've been using this graphic for a while because it's just so astounding. If you took the meals that we served in the month of April in those takeout containers and stacked them one on top of the other, it would be taller than the tallest building in the world. That's just the month of April. If you took the amount that we did in a full year, a couple hundred feet shy of Mount Everest. Now that's a lot of styrofoam that goes out there. So if anybody in here knows how to create an inexpensive recyclable container, you got a job, because we sure could use them. And we do food boxes. So maybe you can't come for a meal, but maybe your family needs groceries. If you took the amount of food boxes that we did in the month of April, most of those food boxes weigh about 50 pounds. If you took all the ones that we did, 797 I believe is the number, it's the weight equivalent of 10 F-150 pickups. Food is such a vital part of what we do. Every day our staff prepares meals with whatever we get in. And some days it's nice cuts of beef, and some days it's fake meat that's plant-based. And we take whatever we get, and it goes out the door to people in need. And we couldn't do it without you. So you've seen tonight that we've changed things up a little bit. The silent auction is going to be online only, and it'll be in November. And if you haven't looked at the QR code yet, you can go to the poster out in the hallway and zap your phone to it and get hooked up to the link that will get you to the silent auction site. There are going to be some cool things there. But we're going to do something else that's a little different tonight I want you to meet some of the staff at the mission. And they're going to share some of the client stories, and they're going to share about some of the work that they do. And so we're going to start by, I'd like two of our social workers to come up to the stage. And I have Elaina and Fayme. And the two of them and I are going to share just some little vignettes about a couple of our clients.
I'm really glad that I can't see any of you because I'm a little bit nervous. My name is Fayme, and I am a social worker at the mission. I'm here to tell you a little bit about Sam. Sam is a single father who stayed in our shelter after a rough start to life with his infant son, where mom made choices that left her unable to care for the baby. She abandoned Sam and his son at a hotel not far from the mission. It was now up to Sam to make things work. When Sam arrived, he came with a small duffel bag with his clothes and the clothes on his son's back. His son only had a blanket, and he walked into the mission on a snowy day in January. And so Sam stayed at the mission for about 6 months until he got his own apartment, which was actually the first apartment he'd ever had. The one thing that was clear to us from day one is how much Sam loved his son. Even though he didn't have a bunch of material things to give to him, he always made sure that his son was well-fed, clean, and loved. I remember many times going over to the shelter, and he was cooking multi-course meals for an 11-month-old. It was pretty cool. The best part about watching Sam and his son grow is that baby got the fortune to experience his first birthday in a stable situation because they were in our shelter. During his time in the family shelter, it was exciting to watch Sam grow as an individual too. Being in a safe environment and having a social worker to be a guide and walk next to him really helped Sam process his situation to make positive changes with his life. He would reflect and ask for advice from friends and family as well, and then make decisions he felt most comfortable with. Sam and his son are doing much better today, on their own with furniture and household goods donated to the mission and given to Sam. Sam is now participating in a program that lets him get paid while going to school while he can stay home with his son. He previously had a CNA license and is working to become a certified caregiver in the future with an end goal of becoming a registered nurse. I've run into a lot of single dads throughout my life, but few of them emanate good father, and Sam was one of those. Sam is becoming a responsible person, working really hard to make a better life for himself and his son. He has remained committed to his own personal growth while he was with us and learned to make decisions that he can and should be proud of.
And I'm Elaina. I'm one of the other social workers here at the mission. So I am privileged to tell you a story. This is a recent story of a new beginning. It is a story about a previous client of mine, David. I began working with David over 7 years ago, way back in 2016. Throughout the years, he occasionally would check into the mission, and then he would eventually check out. Every time he was at the mission, he would tell me he wanted his own housing. To achieve this, together we would investigate potential job opportunities. We would repeatedly discuss his future, but because of his addiction, I would also discuss with him AA meetings, options for treatments, and any other support he might need. David never had a problem getting a job. He would ace the job interview, work until he got his first paycheck, and then immediately use all of that first paycheck money to fuel his addiction. During these times, David would disappear from the mission and live in his car until he lost his job and his money inevitably ran out. This particular pattern of behavior is not exclusive to David. We often see clients travel along a self-destructive path, periodically checking in and then predictively checking out of the mission. Many struggle with embracing short and long-term positive goals. Achieving self-sufficiency and living on their own remain distant for them. From 2016 until this past summer, David checked in and out of the mission a total of 15 times. Throughout the years, each time I saw him listed as checked out, I knew exactly what was happening. Each time I had a glimmer of hope that his checkout would be to a treatment center or to his own place, but I knew it was much more realistic that it was to his car, living outside, or to another shelter. It is so disheartening to see someone who has such potential to continue to feed self-destructive addictions, and by doing so, discarding any hope for a more stable and brighter future. This past spring, David was back to sleeping in his vehicle. His addiction had cost him yet another job, and he had again run out of money. He checked into the mission for the 16th time, and this one would be one of the best decisions he had ever made. Those are his words, not mine. This time, something had changed for David. For some unspecified reason, whatever the reason, it doesn't matter, David made the choice to reach out and embrace the support we offered him. Consequently, he felt something more than just relief. He felt seen, he felt cared for. David believed he could accomplish something. David started attending AA meetings and joined the mission's in-house addiction support group. It was like a light switch for him. Suddenly, he was so determined to live on his own. David consistently met with me every single week he was here. He gave me updates and shared with me all the positive things in his life. David started working at a local hotel, and this time he told me he would save up for an apartment. David had made a real change. He told me I finally wanted to move on in life in a positive way. With your help, I was ready. This place, it pretty much saved me. I'm thrilled to report that David moved into his own apartment just 2 days shy of his 57th birthday, his very first apartment. He celebrated that milestone in his own home, a place that represents so much more than just four walls. His home is a testament to his resilience and hope. David's story demonstrates that no matter how many times a person may fall, the important thing is to keep getting up and trying to move forward no matter what. And with support, determination, and a lot of hard work and faith, David did exactly that. The mission was a place of comfort and temporary refuge for David, but more importantly, it became the place where he was provided with the life tools to choose a new path. It does not matter how many setbacks or struggles a person may face. What matters is finding the courage, strength, and personal fortitude to try again, and knowing that when you reach out, you are never alone. David's journey is a reminder to us that change is possible at any moment. David is proof that no matter how difficult the road has been, it is never too late to take that next step to a brighter and better future.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. And we have one last story to share, a little bit shorter. And it's a story about George. George is a veteran with numerous health issues. He was homeless on and off for many years, often bouncing between shelters, always refusing higher level services that might help him find a home, which is something that a lot of our clients struggle with. George had a deep mistrust of the system. His mental illness contributed to this, but his pride also made it hard for him to ask for help. And I think all of us up here can understand and relate to that. Anytime he came to the mission, all we could do was let him know that we would be here when he was ready. This year, we contacted the VA on George's behalf. He was initially angry because he thought the VA was out to steal his money and waste his time. Well, we were able to sit George down and show him what the VA actually does. Little by little, George came around. Then one day he said, "I'm ready. I want a home." Once George made that decision, he followed through with it. He met with the VA and accepted their help. He saved up $1,000 for the first time in decades and used it towards placement in an assisted living facility. George is no longer homeless and is finally getting the proper care he needs. The mission has helped 34 veterans in 2024 so far this year. Everybody's story is different. Everybody's path that brought them to the mission is different. Everybody's needs for what they need to move on is so different. But they're all people that have come to us for help. And sometimes it's people like you who step up to help, who are that kind face, because if people are only with us for just over 30 days, guess what? They're going to be your neighbor somewhere, or your employee, or they're going to go to your church, walk down your street. They are your neighbor. And so if you're volunteering and you come to the mission and you're a kind face and somebody that asks, how's your day going? And learns your name, and you're not invisible, and you don't have to be ashamed, that's a big deal. So I've asked someone who volunteers at the mission if they would come forward and share what volunteering at the mission looks like. Paul, would you come forward? He really didn't want to do this, but I'd like to welcome Paul Haen to the stage, and I'd like Korrin, our volunteer coordinator, to come up to the front. So Korrin is in charge of all our volunteers, and she's also in charge of the backpack program. So many of you have met her before, and I'd like for her to speak a few words and give Paul an official introduction.
Good evening, everyone. Sue called me the other day and asked if I could say a few words about appreciating volunteers. I thought to myself, no. I'm not great at public speaking, but it was that long, breathy pause on the phone with her that scared me just a little bit. So here I am to voice my appreciation of our volunteers. So I manage about 800 volunteers a year. 800 volunteers selflessly walk through our doors looking to make a difference. And without the countless hours put in by our volunteers, we would not be able to achieve our mission. We couldn't do it without them. These selfless individuals freely give their time and talents, working tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure our operations run smoothly day in and day out. From serving a meal to organizing donations and packing food for 1,200 kids in need through our backpack program. Our volunteers are the unsung heroes who make it all possible, and we want to say thank you. So that brings us to our next speaker. In all the 8 years I've been with the mission, this gentleman has done it all. He's become a true ambassador of the mission through his tireless efforts in helping people. He started our Thursday Bible study groups and is here to talk about his volunteer experience. Everybody, please welcome Paul Haen.
Yeah, this is the biggest crowd I've ever talked to. Usually it's the 5 guys in my Bible study group. That's as big as I ever talked to. So Sue asked me talk about why I volunteer and what's my motivation for volunteering. And there's several reasons, but the first thing that came to mind is just this, that I feel totally blessed. I am so thankful to God for the many things that he has totally blessed me with. I have a beautiful wife. I have a beautiful family. I've got a great life. I had a good job that afforded me the ability to retire. And now I want to give back. Now I want to be God's hands and his feet. And let me make a difference in somebody's life. So, there's a religious component to volunteering. It's called love of neighbor. Of course, the first greatest commandment is what? Love God. The second greatest commandment is love your neighbor. Volunteering at the mission gives me the greatest opportunity to serve my neighbors, my brothers. So I really enjoy volunteering in different aspects at the mission, but the one I enjoy the most is working in the kitchen and serving meals, because this gives me a great opportunity to get to know the residents. My typical conversation with the residents goes like this. Who are you? Where are you from? And why are you here? Most of the residents really want to tell you their story. They don't want to be here, but the mission gives them a chance to start over. And they know, and we all know, if you're at the mission, you've hit rock bottom. You know, imagine these people, everything they own, they can fit in their backpack. Everything they own is in their backpack, and they walk through those doors at the mission. So what kind of people end up at the mission? You might be surprised. I've met engineers, veterans, veterinarians, business people, very successful business people. One in particular, there's a fellow that he had 30 trucks in the Williston Basin, 70 employees, had a multi-million-dollar business, and he lost it all. Drugs, alcohol, divorce seemed to be the common denominator. But regardless of their circumstances, they all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. So how do I do that? I talk to them. I show them empathy. I show them that someone really cares. I pray with them. I cry with them. I don't have it tonight. I forgot to wear it. I usually wear a nice big cross. And that creates a lot of conversations with people, because not only have they lost everything, they've also lost, many of them have lost their faith. And many of them want it back. So we have a lot of good discussions about our faith and about religion. But most importantly, I'm there just to be a friend. I try to make a difference in their lives. I try to plant a seed of hope, and I let God water that seed. And the mission is not for everyone. It's not a place that everybody wants to volunteer at. And I can understand that. So I ask you then, what's your gig? What are you good at? What are the talents that you can share with other people? Can you volunteer at your church? Can you work in the office? Are you a business owner? Can you help out SCORE with entrepreneurs? Are you good at just visiting with people? Well, maybe check out the Senior Citizen Center, or help with Meals on Wheels, or go and visit with people at the nursing home. Use your talents to make a difference in someone's life. Now you're working for fun. Now you're doing something that is fulfilling and meaningful. And the last thing I want to talk about that motivates me working at the mission is the staff and the volunteers that are there. For many of the staff, it's not a 9-to-5 job. They work weekends, they work evenings. And I'm going to name a few. Bobby, Elaina, Fayme, the social workers. They work hard at getting these people jobs, getting these people apartments, getting them back on their feet. Darren in the kitchen, Chuck, Miss T. These people are amazing. Like Sue had mentioned, they don't put an order of food in at the U.S. Foods and plan their meals for a month. They look down the aisle and what's in the freezer and say, this is what we got. This is what's been donated. This is what we have to deal with. And they make fantastic meals. You're great chefs. And there's so many more there. Murray, Jason, Tyler, Ashley, Matt, and many more. I like to call you friends. But I couldn't stop there without mentioning Sue. Sue is you're a true leader. Your employees love you. They respect you because they know you have their back. I've gone there on the weekend and found Sue working the front desk. Like, what are you doing here? Well, we're short on staff. I'll go in the kitchen on a Friday night. Sue's in there cooking. What are you doing here? Well, we're short-staffed. She might have been just making mac and cheese or grilled cheese and Campbell soup, but hey, that's all we had. But they all work tirelessly to help the residents get back on their feet, starting over, and they treat them all with dignity and respect. So in closing, volunteering gives you the opportunity to do something meaningful and fulfilling, and it will bring joy to your life. So be the hands and feet of God, and you will make a difference in someone's life. Thank you.
Okay, I had to go stuff a whole bunch of bar napkins into my sleeve and do the grandma thing, so this is a rough one, you guys. There are a lot of people who make a difference every year, every day in the work that we do. And every year at our banquet, we try and recognize some of those people. And these are nominees that the staff decides who in their world has made a difference. So some of these people aren't here. And I will just read the names, and if you are here, if you would come up, and Korrin and I would like to thank you for your time, talent, and treasures that you have given to the mission. Dwight Thompson. Dwight volunteers in the kitchen. He's a former board member, and on Thursday nights, he and sometimes his wife Ruth come in and serve meals. EERC, who tirelessly come in every week and help deliver the totes of backpack food to the different schools. Pam McLaughlin, she sorts through all the stuff that you donate to the mission to decide what is keepable, what is move on to another thrift storeable, and what has maybe just seen better days. And she helps sort through all of that stuff, tirelessly works by herself, and puts in a lot of long hours. Jack and Joey Muse. I know you've received this award before, but not only are you kind and generous donors, but you have become mentors, friends, spiritual leaders. You know, when I get a letter that I know is Jack's handwriting, and it says "Attention Sue Shirek" on it, I know that it's not just a check. He always writes me a little scripture verse and some words that are just encouraging to me. You have no idea what that does to bless my soul. Mud Bucket, if you are here. Mud Bucket is a band who volunteers their time, talent, and treasures to play music at our 5K, our home run. And it's kind of a cool event because we have bikes and they do a 25-mile bike race. That's pretty amazing that people want to ride and race 25 miles. And we have a 5K, and when it's all done, we have a community-wide picnic, and Mud Bucket plays some music, and they donate their time to do that. And it's a beautiful thing to see all these people who are just people enjoying a sunny afternoon and a meal and some music, and we're just community. So Mud Bucket is my next one. And then Megan McCanna-Hemmer, who is a volunteer who has been Korrin's kind of right-hand person with stats, and she works in the kitchen, and she's a bundle of energy and just has been a very dedicated volunteer for Korrin. So if these people are here, Korrin, I would like you to. Jack and Joey, come on up.
I just want to thank everybody here who has received an award. You guys are very much appreciated. But we do have one more award.
You guys are in so much trouble.
Hi, my name is Murray Hennessy. I write grants for the mission. I also share a common office space with Sue. And we have an administrative assistant between us as a buffer and and a demilitarized zone. I met Sue right about the time she came to the mission. I was working in another organization, and when I left there, she asked me if I was interested in working at the mission. And I said I didn't know. And then she told me I was interested in working at the mission. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Sue does a great job of telling you about clients, her employees, her family, her life, but Sue doesn't like anybody to talk about her. But this is likely Sue's last banquet. And so the class of 25 is over here. And this is a woman that taught us how to deal with clients with grace. And she also taught us to be grateful every day that we come to work, that we've been offered the opportunity to serve. This is not something awful to do. It's a gift to be able to do this. Yeah, some days it doesn't seem like it, of course. It's like everything else, but I am going to get it so bad tomorrow. But I will finish up by saying this. I am so pleased to know Sue Shirek. I'm so pleased to have worked for her, with her, and I'm proud to call her my friend.
Sue, we got you this plaque here. We think it belongs on the walls of the mission. And it reads, in honor of Sue Shirek, Executive Director 2017 to 2025, who led with strength and compassion, who inspired with her unwavering faith in God and her unyielding commitment to those in need, who taught us to embrace the gift of service and helped us find the best in ourselves.
I told them this was not supposed to be about me, and they don't listen very well.
It's only a year in making.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I have one more part to get through here tonight that's going to be... So we have a story that I have wanted to share for a long time. Thank you guys so much. And people ask me to this day, whatever happened to that guy? You know, that guy that used to be outside the mission all the time, kind of tall, skinny guy, used to sit on his haunches, and he'd squat out there for a long time. I haven't seen him lately. Whatever happened to that guy? Well, that guy is someone who is a member of my family. That guy was my cousin. And just like all the other stories you've heard tonight, that guy's story needs to be told as well. I have asked his sister, Karla, to come and share that guy's story. That guy's name was Robert Jadicke. Robert lived at the mission for over 20 years. And his story needs to be told. It's not going to be a story with a happy ending the way you've heard some of the other stories here. But Robert is somebody who everyone at the mission cared very deeply about, who was dealt some raw blows in life and passed away as a resident of the mission. I don't think anybody's life should have to end homeless. But I'm glad we were there to be the place where Robert had a place to call home. It's been about 3 years, I think, since Robert passed. And this has taken a lot of courage for Karla to come here today to share his story. But I would like her to come up to the front and share with you tonight Robert's story. Karla.
I just said to Sue that we are genetically linked. Please bear with me. There may be some tears, but we're going to get through this. I think this is a chance to also celebrate my brother's life and maybe give you a different glimpse into some of what his journey was. My brother, Robert Jadeke, was born in Warren, Minnesota, so not too far down the road, in 1956. And he was the only son of 4 children, so he was surrounded by 3 loving sisters who were kind of a gang. Robert was the second born, and very close in years. He was 1 year apart from my oldest sister. This picture is a picture with my mother, Elizabeth Ann O'Keefe, who also was from Warren. And she was a pint-sized powerhouse with strong morals, who made sure that her 4 children knew right from wrong. And tragically, we lost her in 1971. She passed away at her sister's wedding, and from a genetic heart condition that we didn't really realize was part of our family heritage. And she had 2 children by her side, one my sister Linda, and the other would be Robert at the age of 14. And I think in Robert's life, that was a very defining event, because within the next year, by the age of 15, we started to notice that Robert would go through dark periods where he wouldn't communicate with people, he wouldn't come out of his room. We're talking for days at a time. And unfortunately, the living arrangement at that time where we were was probably not the best. And they didn't reach out to get him the services that he needed, which I think could have really changed his life. So instead, my brother started to find comfort with recreational drugs, mainly marijuana, and spending time on the street in what would be 1 year or 1 day, and pretty soon it would be 2 days and 3 days, pretty soon a week. And ultimately, by the age of 16 or 17, he really had transitioned to being homeless. Times are so different now than the services that we would have had back in the 70s. We're going to fast forward to about the 20s, and Robert in his 20s. And he married a wonderful woman who really invested herself in Robert to try and keep him healthy. And to that marriage, 2 children were born, Elaina and Ryan, and they were truly, truly Robert's pride. But sadly, at that point, he was hearing voices in his head that were really taking over. He knew they were voices. He knew that what they were saying wasn't true. But after a while, he couldn't fight it anymore. And he continued to use recreational drugs, more marijuana, and ultimately transitioned out into the street. It was during that time in his life that he was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenia and became classified as permanently disabled and ultimately became homeless. Now, anybody who knew my brother knew that he was very, very passionate about what he believed. And in his soul, he thought he was 1,000 years old, and that he had lived 3 or more lifetimes, that he invented the internal combustion engine. He would receive money from Capitol Records by putting $1 on a turntable and spinning it. Sadly, he believed that his sisters had passed away and that there was a being that had inhabited our bodies. And he lived under the constant paranoia of the peoples and the beings, me being one, were trying to find him. Robert was a drifter of sort, always on the run, always with paranoia. And he would spend time in Grand Forks, kind of move over to Warren, and ultimately the Duluth area, areas that he knew well in his rational moments. And he would make that trip summer after summer, and it was an opportunity that family actually got to see him. I mean, see him, not like he came to dinner, but at least we knew that he was there and he was okay. And in the winters, he would travel down south, even to the point of crossing over the border into Mexico, which was our worst fear. Robert didn't always make the best choices. We feared that if he ended up in a foreign jail, we would never have any contact with him, and he'd be lost forever. So when he settled into the Grand Forks area about 30 years ago, it was actually a blessing, because from afar, we could start to wrap some services around him. Now keep in mind, he didn't see us as sisters. He saw us actually as the enemy. So any contact we would have with him would be a verbal eruption, and then he would try and run away. Robert was not violent, was never violent with anybody, but he was definitely fleeing for his life in his mind. And I want you guys to know that Robert was not alone. It seemed like he was alone. I mean, you see him on the curb, on his haunches, doing Robert stuff. But hidden behind Robert was a far broader support system than my sisters and I. It included our aunts and uncles and nephews and nieces and cousins, and most importantly, the shelter staff. Everybody was helping in a way that Robert would hopefully accept. And it was always kind of difficult to figure out what he would accept. I'm going to fast forward to 2019, when things kind of took a turn. I received a call from Sue and Anita at the shelter, and there was a concern for Robert's overall health. He was painfully thin. He'd lost most of his teeth by that point, and he was suffering from some severe headaches that would leave him in bed for 2 to 3 days. They could really see that he was declining, and it was time to start thinking about what does that next chapter hold. So through our discussions, we started to make a game plan, knowing full well that there would be some obstacles along the way. I mean, health. He was incredibly thin, dealing with the headaches, but he was a lifelong smoker. And in my mind, that immediately raised the flag of, could we be dealing with cancer? My brother Robert had not received medical, dental, vision care for over 25 years. Probably closer to 40 during his term of homelessness. For the last 20 years, he refused to sign his name, talk on the phone, read a piece of mail, open a piece of mail, let alone go to a doctor or dentist. He had zero income. And if he had income, he didn't have the skills to be able to manage it. So we had to figure out what was going on with that Social Security disability. Did he have an account that was just building somewhere? Or did somebody else taking the money out of the account? But the big elephant in the room was realizing that Robert's health was failing and he was going to need advanced care. More care than could be delivered at the shelter. So we had to start to think about what would that look like? Would it be a nursing home, assisted living, psychiatric care, maybe a combination of 2 or 3? And then dealing with the reality of, was he really a candidate for that in his current physical and mental state? He had minimal living skills. He could not live on his own, so assisted living was rather doubtful. Plus, with Robert, there was always the risk that he would run. If Robert got uncomfortable, he got too close, he would run. And when he would run, it wouldn't be like for a night to go sleep under the bridge. He could literally take off for a week, a month, a year. So we had to be very cautious with that too. And we had to find a way to do it and do it correctly, because Robert was not going to have any part of this. None at all. So our journey began. First step was looking into the guardianship process, because we knew we had to find a way to be able to navigate the systems and advocate on Robert's behalf. Robert was never going to do it for himself. So after discussions with several entities who provide guardian services around here, it became very clear that Robert's case was so complex, I had to be honest with him. He's not going to talk to you. You can't approach him. He's not going to sign a letter. He's not going to open a piece of mail. There was no way they could communicate with him. So everybody declined, and I say that with zero judgment. If I was in their chair, I would have too. So ultimately, we decided to follow a new course, and I stepped up to be his guardian. God has a way of putting the right people in the right place when we need them. I believe that. I always have. And through the guardianship journey with Robert, it was no different. We didn't really know where to start, and Sue said, I worked with a coworker when she was with the police department who went back to law school and is now practicing law, and maybe she'd be interested in taking this on. Enter onto the team Diane Scholl from the Grand Forks area. Yeah. That woman should have a cape because she is so amazing. Diane understood the process, knew who Robert was. She understood the unique circumstances and shared our commitment to help Robert. And when I say our, I want you, our, or we, I want you to know that includes the staff at the shelter who was with us every step of the way. Sue always tells me, we're in this together, and that gives me an incredible amount of strength. So with Diane at the helm, we moved through the guardianship process. First it was a temporary guardianship, and then moving to permanent guardianship in October. And during the hearing with Judge Hager, he listened intently to what we had to say. And he asked me what I hoped, or what we hoped to accomplish for my brother. My answer was very simple. My ultimate goal was to keep Robert warm, safe, and dry for the rest of his life, and hopefully reunite him with his children. So we decided to embark on this, addressing Robert's health was top priority and would prove to be our greatest challenge, because Robert hadn't been to the doctor for 25 years, right? He wasn't going to go there. So we had to figure out how we would address the weight loss, the headaches, and everything else that was bubbling around. So I took a little different approach. And the first 2 issues that I chose to pick out was I wanted to get him health insurance coverage, all right? there's a sea of people that are working on this case trying to get him healthy. And I didn't want a lack of payment to sidetrack. And then secondly, I decided to try and figure out what was going on with his disability. So, enter Northeast Human Service Center into the mix. In the middle of a discussion about Medicaid, the staff person connected the dots and realized who I was talking about, a long-term homeless resident from the Grand Forks area. And she immediately transferred me to the homeless coordinator, a voice that I recognized immediately. God puts the right people in the right place at the right time. It was Jerry Anderson, who was a social worker in the past at the mission. And Jerry and I had had many discussions through the years of how we could help Robert without him knowing that we were helping Robert. So she already knew his background. So not only did we wrap up Medicaid, so we had some insurance for him, but Jerry had a way to get Robert to the doctor. Next stop was the Social Security office. And just by chance, I was heading there with my other sister to work on an issue. I'm armed with the Guardian papers, and I asked them, what's going on with Robert's disability payments? We're not sure where they're going. Can you help us track them down? And they couldn't answer all my questions at that point. But they did confirm that Robert's disability payments had been suspended for 10 years. They'd sent out a letter to his last known address, hadn't been returned, so they stopped sending the payments out, but they continued to accrue. So that point, suspended, was actually a wonderful thing. It was like a growing savings account for Robert. And it seems like we were rolling along. Could it get any easier? I mean, everything was going good. The answer to that would be definitely no, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So the next couple months, we're very busy, we're getting things going, everything's lined up. We roll up to October 14th of 2019. Very important day. That was Robert's medical evaluation day. So Jerry at Northeast Human Services had coordinated with law enforcement and the ambulance crew to pick Robert up at the mission, and they would transport him to a medical facility. I'm across the street in the parking lot, so he can't see or watching the whole thing, and I have to commend both those crews from law enforcement and the ambulance for the care and the concern that they showed Robert. It must have taken them an hour to convince him that he really did need to get in that ambulance and that they were going to the medical center. Okay, we're rolling along. It's really good. So he gets to the medical center, and there's a lot of confusion. So Jerry, with Northeast Human Services, had pulled together an information packet that explained Robert's condition, what we were trying to do, who his guardian was, touched on the genetic heart condition that had claimed my mother's life in 1971, because chances are, 50% chance he had it. And somehow, that didn't reach the people on the front line. So after Robert was there for several hours, the doctor came out, and I could tell that he was frustrated, was confused. He had a clearly agitated patient in the room who claimed that he'd lived in Grand Forks for 30 years, a longtime resident of the mission. There was absolutely nothing wrong with him. And he really wanted to go home, and most importantly, he really wanted to have a cigarette. Okay, I get Robert really wanted to have a cigarette. He'd been there for a number of hours. But the truth is, if Robert had been allowed to go get that cigarette, that was the opportunity for him to flee. So I sat down and I explained it all to the doctor, and the reason Robert was there. And Robert was transferred over and was given a medical evaluation that evening. He was cleared. We didn't get the answers on some of his problems with the weight loss and everything, but they were able to tell us that they didn't see indicators of cancer. Okay, I'm taking that as a win. Then he went over for the psych eval, where they determined that Robert was very obedient and well-behaved. To my surprise, in less than 4 days, wasn't even that, I got a phone call that Robert was being released, and they wanted me to authorize a bus ticket. I was like, wait a second, hold the roll, because at that point, communication had gone completely askew. So I called the patient advocate, and we had a chance to sit down, and yep, there was a lot of attorneys in the room. There's, the things you can do, you can't do. It was enlightening, because at that point I realized that we had two very different goals. I'm thinking about today, tomorrow, next year, end of life for Robert. And they are thinking about this point in time. Okay, if I think about that logically, it makes sense why we weren't connecting. Robert was released that evening, and he went back to the shelter, a place that he called home. That was a win for Robert. I need to mention that when Robert came through the emergency room, they did his vitals. Okay, my brother was tall. He was about 6'2". We arrived at the emergency room. He weighed 111 pounds. Yeah, think about that. 111 pounds. Painfully thin. So we had gotten him to the hospital. The medical facility. We had him checked out. He's back at the shelter. We got to re-examine our plan. We have to focus on what are we going to do for the long term. So I started calling around to assisted living and retirement homes. And most of them, no, all of them declined. There was concern Robert in an unmedicated state would be a danger to the residents. Again, no judgment there, because I understand that. And then, in the middle of it all, the COVID pandemic hits. And it shuts everything down even tighter. So, it was actually Sue, dear Sue, who came up with a solution. That Robert would become the first tenant at the mission. And it worked well, except for the fact that we had to get his disability reinstated, that he would have wraparound services and a small private room, so that we had a little more segregation to try and keep him safe. So at this point, Social Security had been working an entire year on trying to get his benefits restated. An entire year of, believe me, many phone calls. I must have been a real pain in their backside. My frustration was growing because that was so key to being able to get services for Robert that I learned early on in my professional life that there's a lot of things I can't do, but nothing I can't get done. So I swung for the fences and reached out to Kevin Kramer's office. Explained the situation, explained he was a long-term North Dakota resident, and I needed help getting his Social Security unstuck, because it was a key to moving forward for services, for if we could find a nursing home for him. Kudos to Kevin Kramer, his staff, and the staff of the Grand Forks Social Security office, because what I wrestled with for over a year, in a matter of 3 weeks, they had flowing and going. Robert's disability was restated for his monthly income. There's a lump sum for the 10 years that was on suspension. And because he incomed out over Medicaid, they got him on Medicare. They did that in 3 weeks. I mean, when we talk about win, when we talk about successes, that was it. And that enabled Sue's solution to come to reality, and we could still financially support the mission. Ultimately, at the end, it was the perfect short-term solution and was the perfect long-term solution, because Robert passed away in September of 2021 from pneumonia. And that was during the COVID pandemic, and they assumed it was COVID. They tested it, came back negative. By the time I got to the ER room, Robert's oxygen level was at 60%. He was comfortable, he was relaxed. I got to sit in the room with him. It was kind of like having my brother back. He passed away the next day under the wonderful care of All True Palliative Care. They were absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. And Sue and I were able to be by his side for his passing. So that's kind of a short snippet on Robert's life. Without the mission, my brother never would have reached age 64. I'm not so sure we wouldn't have lost him in a foreign prison, because sometimes Robert didn't make the best decisions. We all know that homelessness is on the rise across the country, and in some areas it's on the verge of being essentially out of control. I'd like to take a moment to applaud the wisdom of Northlands Rescue Mission's leadership when they transitioned from simply housing to a platform of empowerment. And you heard some amazing stories tonight about empowerment. I mean, we love to hear those stories and how life's changed, but I think we got to take a step back and remember how that all happens. So if we could take a moment as I express my thank you from my family to everybody at the shelter, but can we express our appreciation to the staff, the board, the volunteers, past and present, who've left a lasting impact on the thousands of souls that they've touched, just like my brothers. Thank you.
You know, one of the biggest blessings in my life was being able to say goodbye to Robert, because for all the years that I've been at the police department and all the years that I've been at the shelter, I lived a couple blocks from the mission. And because of Robert's mental illness and how he claimed that his family wasn't his family because of his mental illness, it meant I couldn't invite him to our house for Thanksgiving. I didn't let him know that I was Susie, his cousin, but I was Sue, the director of the mission, because his mental illness wouldn't allow us to be family. So when Karla and I sat in the hospital, I prayed, I sang, which probably wasn't pretty, but I sang Amazing Grace, and I got to talk to him like he was Robert, my cousin. And it was such a peaceful blessing. And the reason we knew something was the matter was because Robert used to take a heaping plate full of food. For somebody who weighed 111 pounds, his lunch tray was full, like this full, desserts and everything. And it was because of our dining services staff who saw him shaky and said, "Robert, are you okay? I don't think you're doing okay." And who came down and got me and said, "Something's the matter with Robert," that we got him into the hospital. We have a staff that really, truly does care about the people we serve. And I am truly, truly blessed to serve alongside them. And I'm so thankful for Karla for having the courage to stand up here tonight, because it takes a lot to do that. We have a couple things before we close, and the first one is we have some prize giveaways, and I need to have an emotional release here for a minute. So if the staff can bring up the raffle basket stuff, we will draw for those. And also, we did stuff different this year, so sign up for the silent auction. It opens on November 13th. It's all online this year. The QR code is out there. There are also some story cards on your tables, kind of by the dressing picture things. And on the back side of them, they have QR codes as well. So you can zap the QR codes on those stories and read the stories. There are more stories about our clients that we would like to share with you. So we're going to draw. Okay, and some of these are time-sensitive gifts, like the one that has the football tickets for this weekend. So raise your hand after we call your name, and we will deliver the package right to you. This one is for which, Matt?
Fall basket.
The fall basket is ticket number 530155. 530155. Anybody here have that one? 530155. Okay. Right over to the Ostley table. We will get that one to you.
This is for the UND football tickets.
Okay, UND football tickets. 530271. 530271. Five 30271.
Yep.
Okay, over there.
This is for the local business basket.
Okay, the local goodness basket is number 530258. 530258, right here, front and center.
And then 50/50, and the prize is $452.
Okay, this is for the 50/50, and it's $456. So you can start your Christmas shopping for the silent auction. And that one is ticket number 530081. 530081. Oh, right here. Awesome. Okay. That's the first one.
That's for the fall basket.
Okay.
Can you?
Cheryl, did you guys get yours? Okay, who are we missing? Who didn't get their package yet? Fall baskets. Does that go with it?
Yep.
Oh,
Fall basket.
okay. Yep.
That does, and then the tickets are its own thing.
Okay, you guys figure that out. I'll work on this. Okay, right over there. Awesome. Okay, if we could have Jason's picture up, please. So many of you have been with us for the last few years as Jason has shared his story. This is Jason when he was a drug dealer, when he was in jail. And I can tell you he looks nothing like that today. Jason would have loved to have been here to close out this event with you tonight, but he's been sick for the last 4 days. What we want to share on Jason's behalf is thanks to you guys. He's had a steady job at the mission. He shows up every day. He shows up beyond every day. Jason is not only an employee, he's a department supervisor. He's a peer support specialist. Since Jason started telling you his journey, he's gotten his own vehicle. He went on his first vacation. He's now addicted to fishing. He's talking about getting a boat. And he's talking about starting his own business. Thanks to people like you who believed in him, who have supported him, and who have supported our work. People like Jason can change. Just because you went to prison or jail or did drugs or made a mess in your life doesn't mean you can't change. And we are blessed and happy to have him as part of our staff. So on behalf of Jason, thank you. So before we close out this night, I was in church on Sunday, and the gospel was all about give away all your belongings to the poor and follow the Lord. And I thought, I got my ask speech for the mission banquet. But we really do need your help. We cannot do this work alone. We can do the work part, but we need your help to keep the doors open, the lights on, the heat on, the food in the fridge. We need your help. Now, I can tell you that what I can offer you in return for your financial support, I can tell you it's not a fancy children's museum that your grandkids and your kids are going to love and that's going to bring people into town. And I can tell you it's not a big, new, beautiful hospital that's going to attract well-paying doctors and, people coming to town to use medical facilities. And you won't have to travel elsewhere to get the health care you need. I can't offer you that. But I think I can offer you something more powerful. When you support our work, you are changing lives. You're not just helping put a roof over somebody's head or food in some kid's backpack or helping to provide turkeys for Thanksgiving dinner so everybody in this community who needs a meal, all those 1,200 or 1,400 that we're going to serve on Thanksgiving Day, it's not just that. You're believing in people. You're changing lives. You're making a difference so somebody else can have a chance at life again. A chance to sit at the table and be just like you and me. Not any different. A chance to have a roof over our head, a place to go home to that's safe, food on our table. We all mess up sometimes in life. We all need a second chance. We all need somebody to be in our corner. I'm offering you the chance to love your neighbor, to help another human being, to help bring everybody else in this community up so that we can truly be a we. I'm asking for your help tonight. On your table are the cards. They have QR codes on the back of them. If you choose to donate to the backpack program, if you choose to just help the mission, there are some choices there and you can just zap whichever one you want with your phone. There are also baskets with some envelopes, and if you need some more, we can get you some. Or take some from the empty table while you're taking the desserts. Because don't leave those things behind, okay? This work is important. You are the people that make the difference because you allow us to do the work that we do. We thank you. We ask God to bless you. I wish you all the best, and I wish you safe travels home. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping to do God's work. and have a wonderful evening. And thank you to everyone for this night for me tonight, because you really didn't have to do that. It's about God, and it's about the people we serve. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless you all.